And mic on. Here we go. How are you, friends? Good to see everyone. Already got a few people on waiting for me, which is always nice. A lot to talk about tonight. Let's go through. Let's go through the usual spiel first. Who do we got here? We got Nikki. Hey, how are you? I haven't seen you in a few weeks. Maybe longer. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, it's been a little while. I think it's been since the winter at least. But I think one of the daytime streams I was on, which I haven't really been doing because I need to get things done. But good to see you. Good. Hello to the people out there lurking. I know there's a few out there lurking. Lots to do tonight. So let's start. The usual. As you see, we've got a little new backdrop. I took this opportunity. Yeah, well, like I said, what I've been staggering every 2 weeks. So a couple people were kind of like, we didn't know when you were streaming, didn't know when you weren't. So I'm trying to keep it consistent every 2 weeks now. And then maybe once the book's done, I'll go back to streaming a little bit more regular. Maybe I'll try once a week and really try to focus on getting content once a week. But 2 weeks seems to be working pretty well. I've had a pretty good sense of engagement. Had a good number of people on. Whoops. I have a mailer chirping in the background. Let me shut that down. Don't need the mailer on right now. So as we see, we got a new plate up here, new intro plate, and I decided to just take the opportunity, since I had to rearrange a few things on there anyway, to just decide to go ahead and make a new one. And we're going to be working towards a unified branding. That's something I'm going to talk about maybe this week, maybe next week, but we're working on a kind of a unified color scheme and branding look for everything. So, keeping the same content. Hello, CC, how are you? Keeping the same content, but we will be getting a little bit of a facelift. I think it's time. I think things are moving ahead enough that now I can really kind of focus on, all right, this is a real thing. It's starting to come together. Now it all has to kind of be a presented product, presented image. So we'll start off Patreon, according to the phonetics on patreon.com/Fox and Board Games. And I offer quite a few things there. I think last week I would say most patrons probably thought they got something pretty cool from me. Pretty nice presentation of an NPC from a Call of Cthulhu game that I ran, which is usable in other systems if you want to adjust their identity and their persona a little bit. Plus, there's more coming. There's a lot more coming in that regard. The patrons got the first look of the big reveal tonight, because there's a big reveal tonight. Let's see, www.foxandboardgames.com. That is the usual spot to find everything. Now I'm just going to take a moment. Well, I'll finish this off, then I'll talk about the www.foxandboard.com, some new stuff. See the spot you're on? Yeah. That's definitely a thing, and I don't always do it. But that's actually probably a really good idea, that the beginning of every chat we do things like this. They are pretty unreliable. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I'm definitely game to do that. I do have couple text lists that I notify, and no, you're not. I don't know if you're on any of my social media, but my social media does go out with blasts. But I can also send it to the chat. We're almost ready for you to get a review. I know months ago you asked me about an SRD of the game. That's coming up. That won't be a big reveal if you've been playing the game. It'll be pretty interesting if you haven't. Social media. There you go. We're recording for some other week. Yeah. So I admittedly, this has definitely been one of the things that's been slightly neglected in terms of what I've kept up on in scheduling. Hopefully that'll change. So now that I have someone working with me on all my social media, it has been much easier to keep on track. So social media, if you notice, it just says social, YouTube, at Fox and Board Games. Twitter is gone. The Fox and Board Games Twitter is gone. The decision was made last week. Let's forget all about the far-right dog whistles coming from Elon Musk and friends. Let's forget about that for a moment. Let's even say that I was willing to continue to, say, okay, I'll just ignore that idiot and keep on my way with Twitter. When I logged in to check stats this past week, I was notified I had to pay to get to two-factor authentication. I had to pay $5 to get two-factor authentication. And I thought, no, I really don't. So, see ya. It was a very quick decision. It's been kind of limping along. Twitter I did get engagement on, but it was kind of that thing where I was just like, this is really not worth it. If you're going to make me pay to keep my data safe, basically, extort me into keeping my data safe, I don't need your company. I don't care how many hits I get off of it. I don't get enough to make it worthwhile. I wasn't getting 1,000 a day, right? Like 1,000 a day, you might make that evaluation. But at my level, I just said, you know what? I would rather just not. YouTube, of course, had some new stuff go up on YouTube today. Just a quick trailer. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Wolfie. Oh, yeah. Well, Elon's, I mean, again, but they're all, I had this conversation with someone over the weekend, and I'll talk about that. Zuckerberg's junk too, and, Facebook's junk too. We all know that. But Musk has just gone just completely off the edge. I mean, it's not even. I did get engagement off Twitter though. I mean, I would occasionally post something about a chat, and or a YouTube or whatever, and I would in fact get hits. So it did work for what I wanted it to work for, but. Saying nope, sorry, yeah, I'm extorting you, just like some thug in Newark in 1975. Yeah, be a shame if a rock got thrown through your window, but for $5 I can make sure that you don't know rocks get thrown through your window. I had that same impression when I read the note from Twitter. I was like, yeah, see you later. You are definitely not worth it. It was hilarious. Yeah, that's one of the main reasons I keep it. I mean, I have this, of course, and I have, but everything is almost pushed automatically at this point. So if you were watching this, it's Twitch TV from the Tomes Live. And if you are watching this on YouTube, you want to check us out live. And if you want to just even pop on and lurk, that's absolutely great. And as I said, of course, YouTube is cruising along. So as I said, the momentum is there. We are, in fact, moving ahead with several things. Tonight's discussion won't be game topical. Last week's or 2 weeks ago on Monsters was really successful. I had one of the biggest viewerships ever, which is awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for lurking and chatting. I tend to get, it's the same thing. I think I had 20 people on tops and I have about 4 or 5 people chatting, and that's about average. So a good discussion. Ended up being much, as some of you know, we were here, a much deeper discussion on the other, how the monster represents the other in these games, and sometimes in an unhealthy fashion. This week's will be all feel good. This week will be all feel good stuff. So I mentioned the webpage before. Platform for the rest. Huh. Yeah, I mean, Mastodon's really interesting. I don't know if it's going to take the place of Twitter. I mean, I don't really enjoy the way Twitter works either, but it was effective. It was effective for that kind of unidirectional conversation, which explains its popularity among certain celebrities and political figures, because they were definitely into a one-way conversation. So, yeah, without getting any deeper into that, let's go to work share. Pop open. So if you pop over to foxandboardgames.com, you will see that one of the first things a new user is greeted with is a please sign up for my mailing list, as is very common on these pages, a lead generator. And this one is, at this point, if you Sign up for the mailing list. You get some cool stuff. For this particular one, you're just getting a little PDF I made up. Tips I use when creating stories, particularly for RPG scenarios, but also for storytelling in general. I find that it's pretty useful for storytelling in general. So it's a little thing I put out there, and I'll be changing this up monthly or so. I've already got some ideas for the next offering, and these will probably be archived. So if you sign up to the mailing list, I think we can set it up so you'll get back editions. When you sign up, actually, through this, you do in fact get it, no matter at what point you sign up. But even when I start changing it up, I think my plan is going to be to keep this kind of in place so that people can get a hold of this stuff if they want it, which is fine. I'll be offering some more the kind of hard content later. I started with something really general that I thought people could respond to and gain appeal to. So if you haven't signed up and you want to read a little bit of my writing, go ahead over and sign up for the mailing list. It's very infrequent. I think we sent out our first real newsletter today, in fact, which talked about some of the updates that I'll be talking about tonight. So feel free to go ahead and run and do that if you have not. I mean, not run, but feel free to do that if you have not. So let's see what else. Well, I guess we can move on to the big reveal. I don't know if Corporate Ninja Adam is on at the moment. I don't know if he's out there lurking. Is Corporate Ninja in the house? Well, let's see if we can summon him. There he is. All right, just in time. All right, still working. I didn't know if you were, or if you're working on the project or the work as it's called in the contract. So let's pop that open, shall we? I think I have it in preview. So the biggest news of the week coming off the convention is Corporate Ninja, also known as Adam, who's been a long time friend of mine, got me something to publish, which is really nice. It'll be the first thing that's not mine that I'm looking to start getting together. And let me just find Mr. Preview over there. So what are we looking at? Well, about several months ago now, probably before the holidays, Corporate Ninja mentioned to me that he was interested in working with the game company. And I gave him the speech I gave everybody. I said, well, what I'm really looking for is content. I'm not really looking. I had someone at another convention ask if I wanted to collaborate, if I wanted to help him get his own productions off the ground. I was like, no, I just don't have time. It's not that I don't want to do that. So what I said to Adam when he asked, I said, get me something to look at. I said, it's kind of hard to discuss all this in a bubble. So I actually expected him to write a scenario or write a supplement, an actual book supplement for a game. But what he pitched to me was a series of cards, was a card deck, which is going to be called tentatively at this point Journeys deck. And what it is it's a progressive deck in which there are a collection of 24, I think we said, cards per unit that create this synergy with each other. And what it really is a prompt. It's a creative prompt, an aid for somebody who is going to be writing a game or running a game. And it can be used either spontaneously for people to kind of randomly, create something on the fly, or it can be used to write games in advance. So let's zoom in a little bit and take a look at the Journeys deck there. Starts off with a generalized location. Let's say the Ancient Woods. This deck is about the Ancient Woods. And from there you pull cards. And you pull cards that give you, it's very general. At this point, it's system agnostic. We were talking about this and seriously started working on this about the time the whole system reference, the whole OGL debacle went on, and we were just like, you have to make this difficult, right? So we immediately made the decision. I think, yeah. Well, Cult always used a deck. Cult always used a deck, and I remember that. I remember either he used tarot cards or it used its own deck in the first edition. But this is interesting because it allows us to be completely system agnostic. It allows you to generate very quick ideas. And I'll be honest, until I sat down the past few days and really laid it out. I mean, I've been reading his proposal, I've been looking at the card samples he sent, and going, yeah, okay, that's cool. I mean, I think it's a great idea. Now, we both did a ton of research on this. He had been doing research on this for several years, and there was nothing like this. And when he pitched the idea, my first thought was there has to be something like this out there, right? So I went and I scoured the internet for 2 days, I think. And then I got back to him and I said, it's really strange. There's really nothing like this out there. There really isn't. There are a few, like Pathfinder has aspects of this in some of the adventure decks. There are other games that have aspects like this. Like I didn't know Cult did it. And I remember they used to do tarot cards. I didn't know that. As we've talked, I haven't looked at the new version yet. But I was kind of like, this has to be out there already. Like it's a great idea, but it has to be nothing, right? Well, of course, about a month ago, right when he sends me like the first like hard guidelines, what pops up in my advertised feed but side quest decks, right? And I thought about punching my screen because I was just like, you've gotta be absolutely kidding that. So there is something like that in Savage Worlds. Yep. Okay, Adventure Decks of Savage Worlds. That's right. I knew I read it someplace. I know Pathfinder has something similar for certain adventure paths. This is different though, and so even the side quest deck is different because I didn't actually get a free sample of the side quest deck just to check it out and scope it out. I would never do that. And look for good ideas to pick through. Which, frankly, it's a different thing. SideQuest deck is a different thing. It's nice. It's actually pretty cool. But it's different than this. It is different than this. It's different in how this works. And I'm not going to talk too much about that tonight. Mainly because we still need to do some testing with it. I mean, Adam's kind of done some impromptu tests of it. Let's see. Well, so that's what we've been discussing, right? Some of the most common questions I get, even from someone in our regular group who was running a game, to me was, how do you lay out your ideas? How do you start by even structuring these ideas? And, for me, it's like 30 years of experience. As I've said, all my adventures didn't originally look like they do now, But I was just amazed this wasn't out there, and not even something that's close. So the way it works is that there's levels of cards, effectively. Let's call it levels of cards for now. And no, it's not doing it. There. Levels of cards for now. And as you pull cards, it leads you and suggests things like draw an encounter card, draw a loot card, draw another location card. And it can be used like that in that it creates this successive layer. Some disclaimers here, first of all. This is a preliminary layout. The layout can absolutely change. I put this together in a few 6 hours time, maybe, just to get everything where we could see it visually and discuss it. Like here's the front of a card, here's the back of a card, etc. The art is in fact AI generated art. Now, if you've listened to me rant, you know how I feel about using AI generated art in completed projects. This is not art that will be used in a completed form. In the end, our intention, of course, is to have original artwork for the cards. Now, of course, the only problem with that is that slows everything down. So Adam already has about 4 decks ready to go. We can start producing this tomorrow. And especially now that it's kind of out, my opinion is that we should start producing it more quickly. So I'm expecting by the end of the summer to get this rolling, if not a little sooner. We are getting some prototypes ready for Dex Lite. We are going to take it to Dex Lite, and we're going to test it out in playtest slots. And we will see how that goes. As I said, the real litmus test, it comes in playtesting, because, even this past weekend, even after working on Tales of the Hallowed Land for 4 years, I had some very valid suggestions, because I had new groups of players who had never seen the game, and they gave me even things like formatting ideas that I hadn't come up to. Well, so that's it. That's exactly it. Random plot complication. That's what I found. That's what most of these decks I found are. Side quest is actually pretty nice in that it creates this own little encapsulated adventure, but it's very superficial. It doesn't have depth. And what I like about this idea, Hexcrawl set and puzzle. Yeah, so world generating deck. So I have seen this. I mean, this is not a new idea, especially when you start looking at computer structures, computer-based structures for world generation and encounter generation of using effectively a card deck. I've seen students do it. I've seen designers do it. Yeah, I know. Yeah, no. Let me put it to you this way, Adam. Running a game at a con, even if you ran, and not that you're going to, even if you ran a bad demo, it is not nearly as tough as being in front of a group of students, I assure you. That's something I can absolutely say, that being in front of a group of students, particularly the age group you deal with, I feel is tougher than even college students. Not always. There are other problems in college students. They're showing up late, really stoned, and trying to pretend you're not. Well, you might have that at middle school too, but that's more amusement for me, especially now that it's legal. 6th to 5th grade, yeah, 6th to 5th grade's rough. 7th grade, I think 7th to 8th, 7th to 9 is the worst. 9th graders are awful. I hate those kids. I don't hate them. They're fine. They're kids. I was that much of an idiot too when I was that age. So, then there are kind of encounters like Decrepit Trap, and it gives a basic threat level. It's supposed to be kind of humorous too, like just some guy. Now this is kind of funny because I think, I hated being those kids too. Yeah, absolutely. And this if I don't know if Hopes and Flames is on tonight, Andy. That was the big joke during the first D&D adventure. He accidentally just stepped into a bear trap, failed like multiple perception checks, and just like then he rolled a 1 on something, and I was like, well, you found a bear trap, whatever. So that was kind of a joke. When I saw this, I kind of laughed. In fact, his character's name is Sky. Maybe Sky should be the guy quoting as Sky. Okay, seriously, who put this here? So that was my suggestion, and he had already sort of come up with this. Make this whole world that this exists in, visually and context wise. Because, that was the success of, let's say, Magic cards, right? Like, Magic is a numbers game. That's all it is. But it was disguised as this nice world in which these magical things happen. And I thought unveiling the cards in that kind of fashion could be really, really interesting. And so when he said that, I was like, yeah, like, I know he has a great desire to write narrative. And I think this is a chance to give these mini narratives, these mini contexts that allow the players to navigate through an environment and allow a GM to either spontaneously or in advance have idea building prompts. Now, he also wanted to use this for literal teaching writing. And I think that's a great idea too. But of course I said, okay, but let's rein this in. Right now it's for gamers. Let's just make it for gamers. But I think it's fully possible that almost any age group could be given prompts by using this deck. So I think this has a lot of potential. There's a lot of potential to move forward. I think we just need to really get it out there now. And I'm hoping if not by deck slate, we're going to have at least 2 decks in prototype fashion. So hopefully that will cement it as kind of our thing. But then shortly after that, I want to get to production. And, this is kind of the direction I see a lot of, except for, well, I shouldn't say that because I've got a whole other thing going on in the background. for Fox and Board Games as far as publication that came up this past weekend. So we'll see. I haven't had a long chat. We haven't really had a serious chat yet, but a person approached me about possibly publishing some of his own World 5e content. And I said, well, yeah, of course I'm interested. Let's talk more. And he's got a lot of skills and he's got some cool stuff going on. And maybe there'll be something else coming down the pike that I can announce in the next month or two. We'll see. But this is the thing I've been teasing now for probably about 2 months. Like, oh, I hope to be able to talk about it next week. So we kind of set a deadline. And I said, you know what? I said, get me a deck. Get me at least 6 cards out of a deck that I could create a working image board off of. So if someone asks me what this thing is, let's see. Invisible Sun. Okay, I don't know that one. So are we separating the cards into elements? Yes, I think that's how it's going to go. I'll let Adam, because this was my discussion with Adam this week. I said, okay, I've got your cards now. I love your cards. Now what exactly do I do with them? Write me up something. But after I sat down and worked through the layout and the design, I kind of went, okay, now I'm getting it. Now I'm getting how this works. I'm getting how the synergy that he's been talking about abstractly to me is going to actually work. And I think it's really a great idea. So I think, so one of our big discussions, and this is going on to what CC said about about Invisible Sun working off of the deck. There are games that do this. I mean, I know even Deadlands early on did a little bit of this, and then Savage Worlds became Savage Worlds. So I think the joy of this, though, is that you can use it for anything. And, we were in the middle of planning this as a D&D companion aid when the whole GL thing burst open. And now I know they're saying that everything's fine. Don't worry. We're not going to touch anything. Yeah, it's almost how you have to do it. Exactly. That is how we have to do it. And that was my realization. And that's when I wrote him a note and I said, okay, now that I'm looking at it, let me get this. So you have this deck, which is your locations, and then you're pulling from other decks in a modular fashion. And like I said, once I saw the cards laid out, I got it. And I was like, this is fantastic. There's a lot of potential here. Right. I mean, It becomes more refined, and that's the plan, is to keep paring this down. And as I said, don't go too crazy with layout or content adjustments yet, because we haven't put it in front of a group of strangers and handed it to them yet, which is what we have to do to even make sure that there's nothing major that we're missing or that you're missing. And so Adam is entirely the author and designer of this. I'm doing the layout because, well, I've got the skills and I can't really afford to hire anybody right now to do layout. Like I said, illustration and art, I do have a couple ideas of people I can tap. Now, as we know, for Tales That Harrowed Land, Joseph Arsenault, who's a fantastic artist, is going to be continuing to do the bulk of the art for that game. But those are each individual little works of art. And not that I want to cheapen what we do with this deck, but we need something that can be... We need somebody who may be able to do drawings that are going to be viewed at a smaller scale more quickly. Well, not that Jeff can't do that, and I will talk to him about it. But I've also got 2 other people in mind, one of whom pops on here periodically, who is a fairly famous illustrator and artist. And we'll see what her availability and rates are like. And another friend of mine who does some really beautiful art. I don't know where they're at in life as far as being able to commit to a project, but they might be really good at doing really quick prototyped art for this. So that's where we're at now. This is pretty exciting. I think it's a thing. I think it's more than just like a cursory thing. Like, oh yeah, that's kind of a good idea. Like, I thought this was a really good idea. Like I said, when I saw the side quest decks, I was just like, you've got to be kidding me. But as I said, those function very differently. Now, the other thing I thought of, this could even be used for solo play. Really. If somebody just wanted to have a solo play adventure or even prototype an adventure using these decks or some other content, they could do it. Yeah, I thought of that today. I was like, hey, you know what? So, of course, we are thinking of 2 directions in this. One direction that we're thinking is now having a a horror and mystery deck, having a sci-fi deck, having a Wild West deck. I mean, it's endless. Like we can keep. As I said to Adam, I said, look, here's what I want you to do. I, you know, I and Maeve, who may or may not pop on in a little bit, are doing all the marketing and promotion and production. I said I can handle the layout, and if I get overwhelmed, I do have people who can do design and layout. Though again, I prefer to save the money and do it myself. I said just pump out content, like just keep pumping out content, and we will get it together. We will get it going. But we do want to play test it a little more first. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be getting a number of milk this milk this potential. Absolutely. Yeah, this is all about milking it. This really is. So money cooking. Okay. Okay. I have heard of this. That's pretty cool. Yeah, in Monty Cook, obviously I'm a big fan of Monty Cook stuff. I mean, who isn't? Like, he's kind of, I said to Maeve at one point, and I was going to reiterate this the other day, like, he's kind of the model. Like, like if I'm going to be in a game designer and I'm going to have a company, I want it to be Monty Cook, because it's in terms of ethics, in terms of creativity, in terms of accessibility fused with creativity. So, absolutely. Generic fantasy deck, that's exactly it, Wolfie. That's the plan. Have just a fantasy deck that you could use with D&D, Pathfinder, RuneQuest, Tales of the Hard Land, right? I could use it with Tales of the Hard Land. Because if you notice, like, all the statistics are treated very generally. Threat level, low to medium. Let's see. Use a high difficulty social or animal skill to negotiate the injured creature. So those are all things that exist in pretty much every game. Right, you want to use it in Savage Worlds for encounter generation. That's our goal, is to stick with this, go with a pure fantasy deck. Let's see. Right. So, of course, we're thinking, well, assuming there's no blankery with OGL in the future. Let's see. Oh, yeah, fantastic. Monica's fantastic. Again, he's like that one guy in the industry. He's like, whoops, I had a peak, massive mic peak there. He's kind of like the Bernie Sanders of the game world. Like, nobody has anything bad to say about Monty Cook, right? Whether you like him or not, doesn't matter. Whether you like his product or not, doesn't matter. Like, nobody has anything bad to say about this guy, as far as... Well, my mic's really spiking. Let me do a little adjustments here, sorry. It's my excitement. Something that gives a little bit more cut to the audio, a little more cap. Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The value. It's all value. And again, that's something I strive. And, I read an interview. I think Neil sent it over to me. I forget who was interviewed. But, the one thing they stressed about all this was don't sacrifice quality. Don't cheap out on your book because everybody tells you it should be cheaper. Don't cheap out on your card deck because everyone tells you it should be cheaper. Like, create something of quality and people will recognize it and they will pay for it. And I'm a firm believer in that. And that's one of my goals with this company. And also to treat collaborators and, submission work fairly. That's the other. I think I said that to Adam early on. I said that one thing, I say this to everybody. I say this to collaborators of all kinds. The only thing I'm going to promise is that I'm not going to promise you something I can't deliver. That's the only thing I'm going to promise you. That if I say I'm going to deliver it, I will deliver it. So, right, presuming it's not purely overpriced. So that's our big news. That's really our really big news for the week. And I think I really do want to get on to the convention a little bit. So there will be more about these decks coming out through social media. If you're a Patreon, if you're a patron, you got a preview of it. If you, that was the only place I released it so far. A couple days ago, I put a note about it and a picture of the sample on Patreon. So, that's one thing I said to Adam early on. I said, well, the one thing I'm not going to do is in 10 years tell you I own everything you've ever written, unlike a certain other company recently tried to do. Oh, you wrote something for us? Oh, well, we own that. We own the other thing you wrote too. That's one thing I am so not about treating people like creatives like that in particular. Maybe I'd treat some politicians like that. but no, but not creatives. So Epicon. Well, thank you very much, Adam, for being the first person to sign on officially, and produce some cool work and produce work when you said you were going to produce work, which we know that's no small feat, and it's not a dig. It is just the way life goes. Sometimes you think things will be much easier to execute, and other life things get in the way.